Thick jiggly wife who loved me long time. If it ain't fun, shove it where the sun don't shine. Woke pronoun slop need not apply. We like it wet and you're super dry. If you're tired of ugly, play Eastern instead. Shift up, got the goddess needing that bread. Thick thighs, and I realize I would divide her. Wood tap, wood plow, wood nut inside her. Venom throw it back before GTA. East quench the thirst cause they know we thirsty. Enzoy responds, removes DRM mod priority, making my power pole extend. Doreen, Varesa, ready for action. EU crack down on microtransactions. Crew want escape so they pay for service. Not even my worst enemies deserve this. Handing out medals at the GDC to laid off employees. How can that be? Crystal Dynamics activists, losers. Every update a snoozer to users. Cannot create so ruin remasters. More revealed funding from baguette bastards. Striking forever now you've been replaced. Maybe do your job or get erased. Fan service bad. Fart fetish fine. Might end your bloodline with ugly design. Game Informer gotta hide replies. Transformers all more than meets the eye. Identity entity don't even try. All beta testers know not to buy. Masuhiro Sakurai said make games for you, not DEI. Ubisoft train derailment in slow-mo. One word kills woke and it's hetero. You seem to think gaming's in distress, but tell me, why does it only affect the West? Hello, beta testers. Like and subscribe, comment and join to fight for what gaming deserves. I can't help but love how Squirrel Girl could never have been popular if anyone outside of the East realized her, with Varesa and Bredy being thrust upon delighted gamers. I can't help but reflect on how inclusion seems to work very well when activists are not forcing ugly on people. When they're not self-inserting, of course. Players' engagement and interactions, oh my. But Ubisoft can't inform how many buy. Copies sold, but now Tencent owns your ass. And not in a figurative gamer sense. They are what has enabled them to keep existing, but it's going to cost the entities who are so about the things that important gamers hate. And as the emails they hurry to send out dodge questions about layoffs, I will reiterate what makes the gamers important, and it's the fact that they spend. Funny how letting a little bit of time go by makes all the difference. Suddenly knob-gobbling journalists, allergic to the truth, are acknowledging the millions the East is making monthly. Imagine being a gacha game that makes 40 million a month, simply listening and giving people what they want. Watching an entire Western gaming industry peddling this pandering slop that's inexplicably inferior to what came to the men before, despite how frequently the inclusion is being brought up as if it makes them better. Bizarre, because they have better technology now and are demanding more for the product, but it feels like most of their time is spent online arguing with fans, talking about purges and toxicity, when the reality is they are the problem. And a mirror is their kryptonite. Using their own words against them forces them to see their own hypocrisy, and you learn fast that what is done isn't the issue, it's whose side they're on. They all go full Rachel Zegler, but I don't know if you've heard, reality has caught up even to her, she, with respect to whatever pronoun she's going by. What's wonderful is what I outlined in the only video I made focusing on this entitled loudmouth brat ended with me realizing and thanking her, because she, her, like many of the useful idiots smearing turds all over our culture, are so blind to how much of a detriment they them are to the cause, that they couldn't do more damage if they were one of us trying to ruin things from the inside. If I may read this response with the post first. Your dad flew to New York City to reprimand a young actress? Any words on this? 'Cause that's creepy as hell. Weird, and uncalled for. People have the right to free speech. No, shame on your father. You really want to do this? Yeah. My dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. This is called adult responsibility and accountability. Is he allowed to talk to a woman like that? Thank God she's not a woman of color in a wheelchair or something, right? We can't assume her pronouns, to be frank. It could be a man, apparently. And her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue-collar workers who depend on the movie to be successful. Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged, but I'm sure they'll find a way to just dodge all that accountability. It comes with the identity, right? We're cheering for her, just like we're cheering for China owning Ubisoft and whatever comes next, because every day I've witnessed shills waking up trying to find a new angle to suck the schlong of Ubisoft because the pain from the last position, it was probably just too much. And now they realize it's Tencent, it's China's ding-a-ling, so hopefully that'll be easier on their throat, because we know their knees are strong. That's not the real problem with them just getting down there and going to town. Master of TDS seems to have uncovered even more funding going to sensitivity grifters who were recently reinforcing stupidity at GDC, and I say good for them. I hope more Life is Stranges can release so absolute garbage like CNN can claim that gamers created a toxic hellscape by not buying more cringe, sanitized, boring, inferior walking simulators artificially pushed by games journalists who are sleeping with ugly entities who made the games. Masculine women do not sell, certainly not as well as feminine women. The biological brand. Blame whoever you want for this fact, but the types of men that are available to be bullied and psychologically conditioned over to your reasoning do not number great enough to make your delusion a reality, beta testers. Do you have 2Ds on your chest like Daredevil? Well, I need you to join my Discord and subscribe, because YouTube probably undid that for you. Maybe, I don't know. How any of you even get here is a miracle to me as it is. To those of you super commenting and becoming patrons, thank you, but I hope that if you ever witness me farm the triggered losers, that you don't get engaged, because I just need to use some people sometimes to get the thing I want highlighted, seen by the right people, not everybody. I ask again that you don't engage in whatever ass runoff slurping transition fantasizers you're seeing flying into my nonsense, because the trajectory of Ubisoft isn't quite frightening enough at the moment. And in my opinion, 1.5 more kind of high-profile concords need to embarrass the drain-circling woke gaming industry to slap some sense into everybody else who is available to, I guess, compete with Korea, China, Japan, and all these other game developers who have what I'm going to refer to as a 10-year head start. Whoa, West, you mean your game doesn't have jiggle physics? I recently saw that Warner Brothers canceled the definitive edition of Hogwarts Legacy, and I think that's good considering the Rocksteady studio, or what remained of Rocksteady after they made a good game like 10 years ago, was working with Avalanche to make that happen down in those mines. With Wonder Woman canceled and the Nemesis system tied up with Warner Brothers, you can understand why I can feel a little frustrated, because it seems as though, not just because of the one thing that a lot of us might have an issue with, there's so many restrictions, so many chains holding everything back. I want to see more in the future of what Palworld did with Pokemon, even if it means, and especially if it means, getting in trouble. Ananta doing what Spider-Man or GTA is doing, but even better, even if it means getting in trouble, maybe that's what a Inzoi is doing, you know? Versus The Sims, and you're seeing a lot of people go to bat for The Sims. Inzoi is letting you upload anything into the game, and you just know that's going to be trouble. 3D printing things from 2D, generating AI in the game. You know, it's not just woke, it's not just greed, it's not just limitations, it's the regression. That's what makes me a little furious. The backwards that gaming needs to go in because of these people. The men, the women that are being robbed of lifelong fascination, appreciation, inspiration that used to transform people into aspiring artists, creators, and developers overnight. How can we achieve any of that with these activists? When you hear me talk about Crimson Desert and DokeV, Flotopia, it's not because I necessarily regard these games as Second Coming of Jesus Christ. It's because I see a defiant step out of the darkness, a way forward that these people in power punish because they're currently comfortable. The same way if you created a new form of propulsion in your backyard today, you'd be punished, if not disappeared, by people sitting on oil. Recently, Eastern NetEase did Overwatch better. And of course, that's going to come with trouble. They're going to be trying to sue, the success right out of them. Marvel Rivals just dropped a Venom twerking emote. And of course, I can't help but reiterate here that this would never happen in a Western game. Not a good one. Fortnite couldn't do this. Why? Because it's fun. And to alphabet types, they would frame it as offensive, objectifying because the girls can use it. Even though they've been handling a lot of emotes on a gender basis, I guess they do know the difference. Fortnite's emotes are already offensive and require toggles so people's feelings don't get hurt. I always hated how, after a victory in Fortnite, you're not really getting any time to emote because control's immediately taken away from you. God forbid you get a moment to celebrate after a 20-minute match. And Fortnite just dropped Kitana, and they put ugly shorts on her to exactly the reaction that you might expect. And on its own, what's the big deal? But I think we both know just how Pokemon Go things can get. I've seen nothing but negativity here. Because of course it subscribes to that everything's objectifying crystal dynamics, women may not be pretty, so cover them up school of tardology. And the alternatives that I've seen users propose seem so much more reasonable, but you gotta understand, breast curves, even cleavage on a woman is offensive, but men presenting as women, apparently, that's okay, and they may have breasts exposed, cleavage, featured on Jeff Keighley's award show, Man in Drag, and canceled Sega games. Oh yeah. I say all that to say this to you. Up until this point, you might have regarded Fortnite as delivering quality skins, but now, because of DEI limitations, they make inferior to China skins. We used to have a term called Chinese knockoff, and now those are better because you let woke smear those turds all over culture. A leotard is regarded as too sexy. Same leotard one might wear at the Olympics, but the people forcing shorts are totally there for the Olympic ceremony, the opener in France. That was so poorly received, there was a very aggressive scrubbing of what they clearly hoped would go down differently and everybody'd embrace it, but nope. When I play Marvel Rivals, I often say there's a difference between a bad team and an EOMM tragedy, never uses their ult and now we're trapped in spawn team. And with DEI restrictions, in games not limited to Fortnite, there's a difference between kid-friendly and let's force different dances for the male and female. Let's make the dances less dancey. because it's too provocative, it needs to be more rigid, uncanny even. Eastern games do not self-impose limitations that risk their game performing so Ubisoft that China has to save them. NetEase has demonstrated they are willing to listen, just as Inzoi's devs Crafton recently committed not just to mods, but to removing DRM. Listening. I've mused how the consultations, feedback, and criticism Western devs receive go ignored, while it matters enough to Eastern devs to task, if not an employee, AI with scraping sentiment to serve and satisfy to keep people coming back. You've heard me say, Nintendo isn't the scary fan base anymore, it's Hoyoverse. But I look forward to showing you. I'm sure you've tasted many of the posers diving into gacha games all of a sudden and for no reason. It's because even the goddamn journalists are fucking recognizing it now. Commitment to mods. Skyrim's pretty great, huh? But it would have died without fans injecting it with mods. Injecting life. Any dev will say anything to get you on board with their product. But if they show you, that's where the credits do, right? Some of the most obnoxious and narcissistic entities online have been the ones running their mouth about AI. And now that you see the saturation of what I'll call giblets, you think people care? You gonna bring back the horse and stop everyone driving cars? Oh wait. I imagine the people who agree that democracy means agreeing with them are already torching electric cars because how dare they? I'll see you guys soon.